Have you ever sat across from someone you have known for years, perhaps a childhood friend or a family member, and suddenly felt a strange sensation of distance? You are sitting at the same table, you are drinking the same coffee, you are nodding at their stories just like you always do, but inside, you feel miles away. It is not that you are angry, it is not that you do not love them anymore. It is something quieter and more confusing. It is the feeling of wearing a coat that used to keep you warm, but now it feels too tight across your shoulders. It constricts your movement. It makes it hard to breathe deeply. You look at them, and you realize with a heavy heart that you are speaking a language they no longer understand, and they are speaking a language you have quietly forgotten. This is one of the most painful, unspoken experiences of the human condition. It is the silent grief of outgrowing people and places that once felt like home. Welcome to Mira's English podcast. I am your host, and today we are going to walk together through this difficult terrain. We are going to talk about why evolving as a person often requires the heartbreaking act of leaving things behind, and why that does not make you a bad person. It just makes you human. If you are listening to this in a quiet space, take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. You are safe here. Let us begin. Most of us are taught from a very young age that loyalty is a supreme virtue. We are told to keep our old friends close, to never forget where we came from, and to hold on to our roots. These are beautiful sentiments. But there is a shadow side to this teaching that we rarely discuss. We often confuse loyalty with stagnation. We believe that staying loyal to someone means staying the same for them. We unconsciously sign a contract that says, "I promise never to change," so that you never have to feel uncomfortable. But what happens when you do change? What happens when you read new books, travel to new cities, heal old traumas, or simply wake up one day with a different vision for your life? This brings us to the first difficult truth we must face. Psychologists often refer to this as the concept of relational mismatch. A relational mismatch happens when your internal world expands, but your external environment remains the same. Imagine you are a plant that has been growing in a small clay pot for 10 years. For the first few years, the pot was perfect. It protected you. It held your soil. It gave you structure. But as your roots grew deeper and your branches reached higher, that same pot began to restrict you. The very thing that once kept you safe is now the thing that is suffocating you. When you feel this suffocation in a friendship or a relationship, your first instinct is usually to blame yourself. You think that you are being ungrateful. You tell yourself to just shrink back down. You try to make yourself smaller so that you can fit comfortably inside the pot again. You stop sharing your big ideas because you do not want to sound arrogant. You hide your new healthy habits because you do not want to make your friends feel judged. You carefully edit your words, your dreams, and even your personality just to maintain the peace. But here is the reality: you cannot ungrow. Once a mind has been stretched by a new idea or a new experience, it never returns to its original dimensions. You can pretend to be the person you used to be, but it will always feel like a performance. And performing for the people who are supposed to know you best is the loneliest feeling in the world. Let us look at this through the lens of biology, because sometimes looking at science helps us stop judging our emotions. Every single day, your body is shedding millions of dead cells and creating new ones. In fact, scientists say that over the course of 7 to 10 years, almost every cell in your body is replaced. You are biologically not the same person you were a decade ago. Your taste buds change. Your brain structure shifts based on what you learn. Your tolerance for stress adapts. If nature allows your physical body to constantly renew itself, why do we expect our personalities and our social circles to remain frozen in stone? Nature does not tolerate stagnancy. Everything that is alive is either growing or dying. There is no middle ground. When you try to force yourself to stay in a dynamic that you have outgrown, you are fighting against the fundamental laws of nature. You are trying to be a statue when you were born to be a river. The problem is that our society does not have a ritual for this kind of ending. We have funerals for when people die. We have breakups for romantic relationships. We even have resignation letters for when we leave a job. But we do not have a ceremony for when a friendship slowly dissolves because your values no longer align. We do not have a script for how to tell a family member that their negativity is no longer welcome in your peace. Because there is no official way to end these chapters, we often let them drag on for years. We carry the dead weight of expired relationships because we are afraid of the guilt. Let's talk about that guilt. It is the heavy stone you carry in your chest whenever you think about moving on. This guilt usually stems from a misunderstanding of what love is. We think love means proximity. We think that if we love someone, we must be physically present in their lives and involved in their daily drama forever. But sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to step away. There is a concept called the crab bucket theory, which explains why this separation is so difficult. If you put a single crab in a bucket, it can easily climb out. But if you put a group of crabs in a bucket, something fascinating and tragic happens. If one crab tries to climb up and escape, the other crabs will grab it and pull it back down. They do not do this because they are evil. They do this because that is their instinct. They are reacting to the movement. In your life, the people around you are used to you being in the bucket with them. Maybe your bucket is a shared habit of complaining about work. Maybe your bucket is a lifestyle of partying every weekend to escape reality. Maybe your bucket is a family dynamic where everyone avoids talking about their feelings. When you start to climb out of that bucket, when you start going to therapy, or saving money, or chasing a dream, or setting boundaries, you disrupt the equilibrium. The people left in the bucket will feel threatened. Your growth holds up a mirror to their stagnation. Without you saying a single word, your improvement asks them a silent question. Why are you still staying here? This question makes people uncomfortable, so they might try to pull you back down. They might say things like, "You have changed," or "You think you are better than us now," or "You are too sensitive these days." Hear this clearly. These comments are not really about you. They are a defense mechanism. They are the sound of their fear. They are afraid of being left behind. And while you can have compassion for their fear, you are not responsible for carrying it. You are not required to set yourself on fire just to keep others warm. This realization leads us to a deeper, more subtle struggle. It is the struggle of emotional resonance. Imagine that every person vibrates at a certain frequency. This frequency is a combination of your emotional maturity, your interests, your values, and your general outlook on life. When you meet someone who vibrates at a similar frequency, you feel an instant connection. The conversation flows. You feel energized. You feel understood without having to explain yourself. This is resonance. But as you do the inner work to heal and grow, your frequency changes. You might start valuing peace over excitement. You might start valuing deep conversation over gossip. You might start valuing vulnerability over acting tough. As your frequency shifts, you naturally fall out of harmony with people who are still operating at your old frequency. This is not a judgment of their worth. A radio station playing classical music is not better than a station playing pop music. They are just different. But you cannot listen to both at the same time. When you try to force a connection with someone you no longer resonate with, you experience what is known as energetic friction. You leave the interaction feeling drained, irritated, or empty. You might find yourself checking your watch, wondering when you can go home. You might feel the need to recover after spending time with them. This exhaustion is data. It is your nervous system telling you that this environment is no longer compatible with who you are becoming. Acknowledging this incompatibility is not an act of betrayal. It is an act of honesty. And honesty, even when it hurts, is a form of respect. You are respecting your own path, and you are respecting them enough to not fake a connection that is no longer there. However, knowing this logically does not stop the heart from hurting. There is a specific kind of grief that comes with outgrowing people. It is a grief without a funeral. You are grieving the loss of the closeness you used to have. You are grieving the memories. You are grieving the version of yourself that fits so perfectly into their world. It is okay to feel this sadness. It is okay to miss them, even as you are walking away. You can love someone deeply and still recognize that they do not belong in your future. As we move deeper into this understanding, we must address the fear of loneliness. This is the biggest barrier that keeps people stuck in expired relationships. We stay in toxic friendships or stagnant circles because we are terrified of the void. We think that being alone is a sign of failure. We look at our empty calendar and we feel a panic rising in our chest. We think, if I leave this group, who will I be? If I am not the helpful friend, or the party friend, or the compliant daughter, do I even exist? This fear is natural, but it is an illusion. The space you create by leaving the wrong people is not empty space. It is fertile ground. It is the vacuum that the universe needs in order to bring in the new. You cannot invite new, aligned connections into your life if your house is full of guests who overstayed their welcome. You have to clear the room first. Let us stay with this concept of the empty room for a moment. When you finally decide to distance yourself from people who drain you, the first thing you will encounter is silence. For many of us, silence is terrifying. We have been conditioned to equate noise with importance and busyness with worth. So when the phone stops buzzing with drama and the weekend calendar opens up, the silence can feel like an accusation. It whispers to you that you are unpopular, that you are unwanted, or that you have made a terrible mistake. But this is where we must apply a critical reframe. There is a profound difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. Solitude is the glory of being alone. Loneliness is a poverty of the self. Solitude is the richness of the self. When you outgrow your old circles, you are not entering a period of loneliness. You are entering a period of incubation. Think about the caterpillar. Before it can become a butterfly, it must enter the chrysalis. Inside that cocoon, the caterpillar does not just sprout wings. It actually dissolves. It turns into a formless liquid. It completely undoes who it used to be before it can reconstruct itself into something new. That period of being goo, of being formless and alone, is dangerous and vulnerable, but it is non-negotiable. If you were to cut open the cocoon to help the butterfly out because you felt sorry for its isolation, you would kill it. It needs the struggle. It needs the containment. Your empty room is your chrysalis. The time you spend alone after leaving a toxic friendship or an unfulfilling environment is when you finally get to hear your own voice. For years, you may have been an echo of everyone else's opinions. You liked what they liked. You feared what they feared. Now, in the quiet, you get to ask the most important question a human being can ask. Who am I when nobody is watching? This discovery requires space. It requires the absence of other people's noise, So do not rush to fill the void. Do not panic and text an ex-partner just to feel seen. Sit in the discomfort. Let the silence do its surgery on you. Once you accept that this period of solitude is necessary, the next logical question arises. How do we actually let go? How do we leave without causing a war? This is where many people get stuck. We often think that ending a relationship, whether platonic or romantic, requires a massive confrontation. We think we need a courtroom scene where we list all their crimes and demand an apology. But real life is not a movie. Most of the time, confrontation does not bring closure. It only brings conflict. There is a gentler art that we need to learn. It is the art of drifting. You do not always need to announce your departure. You do not need to send a long, dramatic text message explaining that you are on a journey of self-discovery and that they are no longer invited. Sometimes, that is just the ego wanting to be righteous. Instead, you can simply stop feeding the dynamic. Relationships are like plants. If you stop watering them, they naturally wither away. You can stop initiating the plans. You can take longer to reply. You can be polite, but brief. This is not ghosting. Ghosting is cruel because it leaves the other person confused and questioning their reality. Drifting is different. Drifting is a slow, respectful withdrawal of energy. It is a natural recognition that the season has passed. You are not slamming the door in their face. You are just gently closing it so you can keep the heat inside your own house. However, even if you do this gracefully, you will likely face a powerful enemy inside your own mind: nostalgia. Nostalgia is a beautiful liar. It is a filter that edits the past to make it look warmer and brighter than it actually was. When you are lonely on a Friday night, your brain will show you a highlight reel of your old friends. You will remember the laughter. You will remember the inside jokes. You will remember the comfort. But your brain will conveniently delete the scenes where they made you feel small. It will delete the anxiety you felt before meeting them. It will delete the exhaustion you felt afterwards. This cognitive distortion is similar to what economists call the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is the irrational urge to keep doing something just because you have already invested a lot of time or money into it, even if it is no longer working. You think that because you have been friends with someone for 10 years, you owe them another 10 years. You think the history justifies the misery, but history is not a debt. Just because something lasted a long time does not mean it was working. It just means you were enduring. You have to trust your current reality more than your memories. Your nervous system is the most honest guide you have. If your body tenses up when their name appears on your phone, that is the truth. If you feel a wave of relief when they cancel plans, that is the truth. Listen to the relief. Relief is your intuition telling you that you have made the right choice, even if your mind is still telling stories about guilt. Now, let us address the most painful accusation that might be thrown at you, either by others or by your own inner critic. The accusation that you are being selfish. We are conditioned to believe that putting ourselves first is a moral failing. We are taught that a good person is a martyr, someone who sacrifices their own happiness to keep the peace for everyone else. But let's look at this logically. If you stay in a relationship where you are unhappy, resentful, and stunted, are you really being a good friend? Is it an act of love to show up with fake energy? When you force yourself to be around people you have outgrown, you are essentially lying to them. You are presenting a mask. You are depriving them of the chance to find friends who actually resonate with them. And you are depriving yourself of the same. Releasing them is actually an act of integrity. Furthermore, you cannot save everyone. This is a hard pill to swallow, especially for those of us with high empathy. We see the potential in people. We see their pain. We think that if we just love them enough, if we just stay loyal enough, we can fix them. We can pull them up to our level. But you cannot pull someone up a mountain if they do not want to climb. If you try, the physics of the situation dictates that they will eventually pull you down. There is a saying in safety training for lifeguards: you cannot save a drowning person if you do not have solid ground beneath your own feet. If you jump in while you are still struggling to swim, you will both drown. Outgrowing people is often just the act of finding your own solid ground. It is not an act of malice against those who are still in the water. It is simply the realization that you can do more good for the world when you are healthy, whole, and thriving than you can when you are depleted and resentful. This brings us to the concept of the upper limit problem. Psychologist Gay Hendricks suggests that each of us has an internal thermostat for how much success, love, and happiness we allow ourselves to feel. When we exceed that limit, we start to feel anxious. We feel like we don't deserve it. So we unconsciously sabotage ourselves to get back down to a familiar level of struggle. Your old environment often represents your old thermostat setting. It represents the level of happiness you used to think you deserved. As you grow, you are turning that thermostat up. You are deciding that you deserve more peace, more respect, and more joy. The people from your past may still be operating at the old setting. When you leave them, you are smashing through your own upper limit. The guilt you feel is just the friction of expanding your capacity for happiness. It is uncomfortable to be the one who leaves. It is uncomfortable to be the one who changes. But the alternative is far worse. The alternative is a slow, quiet betrayal of your own soul. And the longest relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. You have to live in your own mind 24 hours a day. You have to sleep with your own thoughts. If you compromise your internal environment to make your external environment comfortable for others, you turn your own mind into a hostile place. As you navigate this transition, you will need new tools. You will need to learn how to validate yourself because you can no longer rely on your old crowd to clap for you. In fact, they might not clap at all. They might criticize. They might gossip. And you have to be okay with that. You have to reach a point where your own self-respect is louder than their disapproval. This journey of separating yourself from the old crowd leads us to one of the hardest truths you will ever have to accept. In order to save yourself, you might have to be the villain in someone else's story. This is the price of freedom. When you set a boundary, the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will feel attacked. When you stop being the convenient friend, they will call you selfish. When you stop engaging in toxic family dynamics, they will call you difficult. You have to make peace with their misunderstanding. You cannot control the version of you that exists in their minds. If they need to paint you as the bad guy to explain why you are no longer around, let them hold that brush. Their narrative is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to your own peace. Protecting your energy will always look like arrogance to people who do not respect their own time. Do not try to convince them otherwise. Just keep walking. But let us add some nuance here, because life is rarely black and white. Outgrowing someone does not always mean you have to cut them out of your life completely forever. Sometimes it just means redefining the relationship. It means changing the category. Perhaps someone who used to be an inner circle friend, the kind you tell your secrets to, needs to be moved to the category of a casual acquaintance. You can still have coffee with them once a year. You can still wish them a happy birthday. You just stop giving them the power to influence your emotions or your decisions. There is a concept in architecture called load-bearing walls. A load-bearing wall is critical. If you remove it, the house collapses. Other walls are just partitions. You can move them without danger. You need to look at your relationships and decide which ones are load-bearing for your future and which ones are just partitions from the past. You can love the partitions, but you do not build your life around them. And here is a hopeful thought. Sometimes, when you leave, you create a ripple effect. By refusing to play the old games, by refusing to stay small, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. Your departure might be the wake-up call they need. Maybe in 5 years or 10 years, they will start their own journey of growth. And maybe, at a different time, on a different level of maturity, your paths will cross again. It happens more often than you think. But you cannot wait for that. You have to go first. So, as we bring this conversation to a close, I want to offer you a virtual permission slip. If you have been waiting for a sign that it is okay to let go, let this be it. You are allowed to outgrow people who are not growing. You are allowed to be a different person than you were a year ago. You are allowed to cancel plans if your body tells you it needs rest. You are allowed to want more for your life than what your parents wanted for theirs. You are allowed to leave conversations that make you feel heavy. You are allowed to be unavailable to people who only call you when they need something. You are allowed to choose your own mental health over someone else's comfort. This does not make you cruel, it makes you honest. The most beautiful things in nature are the ones that are constantly changing. The seasons change, the tides change, the moon changes. Why should you be the only thing in the universe that stays the same? Embrace the evolution, embrace the solitude, and trust that on the other side of this transition, there are people waiting for you who will love you not for who you used to be, but for who you are becoming. You will find your tribe. You will find the people who speak your new language, but you have to leave the old room to find them. Thank you for letting me share this space with you today. If this episode found you at the right time, or if it gave voice to a feeling you have been carrying in silence, please consider subscribing to Mira's English podcast. We explore these deep waters every week, using English not just as a language to learn, but as a tool to heal and understand ourselves better. Take a moment after this episode ends to just sit in silence for 1 minute. Do not rush to the next notification. Just breathe. You are doing just fine. Until next time, take care of your heart. Goodbye for now.